Hey everyone, and welcome to the Xbox Roundtable. This is episode number 135, your oasis at the end of the week to kick back, settle in, grab a cold one, and listen to the crew discuss all things Xbox and all kinds of big news from all over the gaming industry. I'm your host, Invader, and I'm looking forward to getting into tonight's topics. There's definitely some juicy ones here to discuss. But first, let me get to our panel. And you know what, guys? We're a little bit on the short side this evening. A couple of guys had to drop out early, unfortunately. But hey, you got me, you got Centurion, you got Shock. Let's get into some intros here. And Centurion, I'll head to you first. Good video, by the way, earlier, pal. You're really interested in Scorn, aren't you?
I'm interested in actually a lot of the new IPs that Microsoft is putting out. Well, not Microsoft, but AA developers are making actually exclusive to the Series X and PC compatible hardware. And I actually hate having to say that every time, but I will not let somebody call me out trying to say that I'm trying to lie that it's an exclusive game. No, it's not an exclusive game. It's exclusively to the Series X, so that makes it a console exclusive and a next-gen exclusive, and some of the stuff that they have created for that game, I really believe we have Microsoft's Death Stranding. But, hey, that's to be decided, but I'm really liking the art design. I mean, like, me and my wife were watching some of that gameplay from back in 2017 when you see him open the gun, and the gun is just wiggling around, moving, and he's just shoving what looks like some crazy alien bullet back into this thing before he puts the gun back together. I mean, I like how they described it as this is supposed to be a full body experience in some way or manner. They have created some kind of a mechanic in this game that's going to be very, very immersive.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting title. At first, I wasn't sure what to think about it. Obviously, it got announced a couple of years ago, and then it's just been kind of floating around.
Well, actually, I don't know. Do you care to kind of know at all? Like, I'm not trying to be like Mr. Knowledgeable here.
Well, you may as well. Go ahead.
Well, sadly, the EBB software originally announced the game in November of 2014, and they basically were going to try to fund it with a Kickstarter, and it sadly did not go over very well. They were not sure how the game was going to work due to the lack of funds, and it was originally slated out to be actually a 2-part game that was supposed to be released in 2 separate installments. And then all of a sudden, a quote, air quotation marks, mysterious investor decided to help privately fund the game. And this mysterious investor is only described as somebody who did not want to interfere in the development process. All they did was want to help fund a game that had a very strong creative avenue for it. And, I'm not Mr. Conspiracy theorist, but it sounds like Microsoft's MO, in my opinion. Microsoft technically does not own EBB software, so they can actually, in some way fund a game. This isn't unheard of. Isn't this how, Tekken or something was like an exclusive to PlayStation? Was because they helped basically fund the game. This is also how Rise of the Tomb Raider became a 1-year exclusive because Microsoft put out a large investment to basically make that game exclusive for 1 year. So definitely it has Microsoft all over it, and they've really helped EBB software come back as a sense. They started another Kickstarter explaining that the game was now going to be a single game that was built on a much more massive scale, and it's definitely received a lot of interest from the PC crowd. Not trying to ramble.
Oh, hey, no, hey, you're definitely not rambling. Yeah, it caught my eye as soon as it was announced early on in May, and yeah, they definitely have that, H.R. Geiger, I believe, the look for it. We were talking about this a bit before the show, guys, and it's a really interesting aesthetic that they have going for it. It's very organic.
They are borrowing from, like we were talking about, H.R. Geiger, and what was the other guy? He actually have it right here in the, I can't even pronounce this. It's like Zdislav Bekzinski. Basically, these guys helped create some of the creations we saw in Alien. Those weird, macabre structures in the very first Alien movie. just how the statues and just remember the original, just how the spaceship looked and how everything was growing off the walls, and the aliens themselves just had this weird nature to them.
Yeah, yeah, it's a very unique look, very memorable. Obviously, from Alien, you have that organic kind of, the bony kind of
Yeah.
structure, and
When I first saw the 2017 trailer, because that was actually the first time I had seen Scorn. I when the first time I saw the trailer, I was like, "Are they making another Alien game?" Like, at least that was the first time I saw it, because a lot of the
it's that same art style.
Yeah,
that they kind of took it from.
yeah, that's pretty much. They even admit, the guy admits that he borrows from the art style, which is really cool. And I remember the first time I saw the trailer, because they don't actually really show very much of the actual like character and the NPCs and the enemies you'll be facing. It's mostly these sweeping shots of just these environmental areas that are extremely detailed. And when you just saw what these environments look like, you were just like, are they making another Alien game?
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely interesting what they showed off. At first, when they first showed that trailer, as we were going through it, I was like, "What the heck is this?" There's like this thing sticking out of the wall, protruding, and then you got all these heads everywhere. It was very mysterious, and I don't know. It just obviously
It'd be nice to see an Alien Tomb Raider.
I want to say it looks really kind of dead. I hate to use Dead Spacey, but I like does everybody remember in the Dead Space mechanic, at least in the first one, how your health bar was actually a set of lights that went down your spine.
Back, yeah.
The gun, basically you had to like tilt the camera in a certain manner to actually be able to read how many rounds were left in the gun. That's what I kind of see going on in Scorn. That's what's really cool, is they've actually put out a lot of information on their Kickstarter. They actually revealed some of the animations that they're working with, and one that I put in my video, they showed an animation of an arm going from healthy to decaying and then back to healthy. And to me, that just looks like a health process that your character will probably more than likely have. And as you take damage or whatever, your character will probably become more frail looking and like fragile. And as you're healthier, you'll probably have more mass to your character. So it's definitely going to be one of those games where the information is not like just plastered on the screen in front of you. Before you go around the corner and start fighting people, you have to stop for a second and open up your gun and look at how many bullets are really in the gun, and then put it back together and then go about your business. Like, you actually have to plan stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. Like, I'm still getting my head wrapped around everything when it comes to Scorn. Between that and the Medium, which I'll admit, I think I'm more interested in that one. But we will get into Scorn a lot more. It's a topic for later on in the show. But
it's still the intros. I'm sorry. Blah blah blah.
Oh no! Hey, I brought it up. Don't worry, because you did do a really good video, and I suggest everybody in the chat to check out Centurion's video from earlier today. It's definitely very interesting to listen to. He brings up some great points, and just a great preview for the game overall. Shock Buddy, how are you doing today? Have you been playing any games over the past week?
Oh yeah, pretty good. I finally got in that copy of Lost Odyssey. I never totally. I think that was probably just in heavy in my gears. 4 days back when that released. So I've been playing that. And that one's pretty cool. Also, that same dev, or it came from the same I guess director from Mistwalker Studios. He did the last story on the Wii, so I've been checking that out too. It's kind of around the same time frame, so those have been interesting. But man, Xbox could have had a perfectly good RPG dev right there, and they were already publishing their games and didn't continue it on, because now I don't think he's released. I don't think he's released anything for a while.
Well, Lost Odyssey, that's Mistwalker, right?
Yeah, and they did the one on the Wii. Seems pretty cool so far. It's just just the controlling actual gameplay aspect of it. But yeah, they did that in Blue Dragon. Yeah, that one I picked up too. I just haven't started it.
Yeah, Blue Dragon, I tried out a bit, and I gotta admit, again, it was done by the same team that it has a lot of inspiration with Dragon Ball behind it. Obviously, you can tell from the visuals, and it really caught my eye. I don't think the gameplay's for me personally, but it's a very cool game to check out.
That was me on the 360. Sorry to hop in, but I remember Blue Dragon. I actually have thought about adding that game to my backlog, purely because the art style, the visuals, everything caught my eye. Like you said, I really wanted to play that game. But oh my gosh, it was my first time experiencing the Asian influenced RPG outside of Final Fantasy, and I was not able to finish the game.
Mm. Yeah, even Lost Odyssey, I have it downloaded and ready to go. I really want to give it a go. I've heard mixed things about it, but a lot of people do seem to cherish that title for some reason. And yeah, a lot of people want to see a sequel from it too. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what Xbox has cooked up its sleeve going into the near
Do you know
future.
if Microsoft owns the IP for both? I think they do for Lost Odyssey.
I think they
do.
own both.
Oh, okay. See, with all these RPG devs now that they have, they should definitely continue at least with one of those. I think that would be a huge buzz. Like if like Lost Odyssey, I think that would get a lot of fan reaction.
Yeah, my only question would be would because I mean obviously those are like Japanese JRPGs. Do you think like a Western studio would be able to take on take on a JRPG and do it justice?
I mean, I think so. In this day and age, like it's not so like maybe like 20 years ago. Yeah, you were kind of probably those Western and Eastern studios are probably, and they're set in their ways, probably didn't have as much kind of cross, working or relationships. Whereas I'm sure they do now in this age. I mean, they play those games. They're everywhere now. They're on PC. Very rarely do you see a Japanese, game. Even like whatever, if even it doesn't come to the Xbox, it comes to PC usually. So I mean, you're not locked to just buying it on the PlayStation, or they're locked away on the Sega Saturn, and you'll never see them on any other platform because that's where a lot of them went. Some other great games that you never got to experience. So I don't think it's much of a issue, but. And it's not like Japanese devs don't make like bad RPGs, because they do make. There's plenty of bad RPGs on both sides. So.
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree with you on that. Yeah, actually, that is an interesting perspective on that, Shock, because you're right. They have In Exile, they got Obsidian, and who knows, maybe another studio could tackle it too. And we don't even know if they probably in talks to purchase a couple of other studios in the near future, but it would be good for them to grab a Japanese dev for JRPGs, I would say. However, they have lots of talent in their studios now, and I would be interested to see what they could do with the JRPG for sure. Hey, have any of you guys, obviously Minecraft Dungeons has come out now. I don't know if any of you guys have tried the title yet.
That's a negative.
Which game?
Minecraft Dungeons.
Oh, wait a minute. Oh, I thought you said different game. Minecraft Dungeons? No. Sadly, oh my God. PTK called me out on this. I did download it. I actually showed it to my wife last night. We're actually supposed to play it here in the next couple days together because we want to check it out together. I'm really excited. No, I haven't played it yet because I started playing a crack rock of a game called Maneater. We'll be doing a review for it next week. Shameless plug. Anyway, but definitely, I've also been trying to work and create a YouTube video, so I haven't had enough to kind of just jump around from game to game.
Yeah.
Minecraft is on the radar, though.
Well, it's funny because, yeah, Paris Lockhart, Minecraft Dungeons, you all need to play it. You are absolutely correct, and actually, I have played it. I you know what, I was kind of curious about this game. What I did was I'm not huge on Minecraft whatsoever. Wasn't interested in story mode. Dungeons, however, it caught my attention. I played it. I played it for a couple of days off and on, and I beat it yesterday. I gotta admit, fun game. Really fun game. I definitely suggest checking it out, fellas. I played it by myself, though. It's probably a lot different when you're playing with like 3 other people. It's co-op. Is Dungeons cross-platform? Born Distracted? Yes, I believe so. I think I'd
That's
have
one
to.
thing I've always wanted to know is it crossplay? That is definitely something I've been wanting to know.
I think
'cause
it
I've
is
heard a
with at
lot of
least
people bring
Xbox and
it up.
PC.
Yeah, that's correct. I think it is between Xbox and PC. Sorry guys, maybe I'm a fraud with that, but well,
Fraud with
just
what?
just not 100% knowing if it is
Dude, I'm
crossplay or
over
not.
here holding down Fraudland, not playing it. But you're
Well,
an Xbox guy. Yeah, I also work too much.
look, it's a very simple dungeon crawler, but at the same time, it has some really nice spaces that they've created. The soundtrack, surprisingly, is pretty good, honestly. And UK Dazarus, I always play with myself, Fader, baby. Yes, everybody knows that you do, pal. That's
my
that's
God.
not a secret, Daz. That's not a
No.
secret.
From what I hear, I think they'll have, probably another hit on their hands. Probably not anywhere close to what Minecraft is. Because you even have like adults playing Minecraft, making like one of my friends actually made our whole city of Indianapolis on Minecraft, like the whole, and he's been working on for a decade.
So does that mean that's all he plays?
No, but he's added to it year after year. Him and between him and one other guy. You'll see if you YouTube it. But it's really great detail. But like you have even adults of pretty much of all age playing Minecraft because you can do so many things with it. But I think it's great. It's only $20. It's I heard from some other podcasts that it was easy to play with their kid to kind of get them in the early stages of like an RPG to kind of understand it because it's a little bit more simple than say Diablo. But it gets really hard on some of those harder difficulties. It's really challenging. So it kind of works for all ages too, I guess.
See, that's yesterday on the Shop Podcast we had Dreadpool, and he's actually giving me crap in the chat right now because he's like, you still haven't played Minecraft Dungeons. But he was talking about how him and his 6-year-old little girl were playing, and I believe he said he was playing with Fork Boy, and his daughter went and turned on the other Xbox, started a new character, and actually figured out how to join Dreadpool and Fork Boy in their game through matchmaking, and she kept up with them with a new character. And they just had a blast of a time. And this is like that whole thing I was saying last night. This is why Microsoft and PlayStation will never make the same games, because PlayStation sees games as a massive source of movie entertainment. So they want to make these games that, in my opinion, that are these blockbuster events. And even though Microsoft wants to do that, and they do try, Microsoft also wants to tackle the other end of the spectrum and create software that families can enjoy together. Minecraft Dungeons, I'm looking forward to Grounded. And this is just, to me, this is definitely where Microsoft shines best, is in creating games like Minecraft Dungeons, because especially with everything going on right now, it's just a game to bring people together.
Yeah. I'll tell you this much. Again, guys, I went into it with not too much as far as expectations go. And man, I had a whale of a time just playing through it. I mean, there's not that much to it, but at the same time, it's a lot of fun. It's a good community game, good multiplayer. I can see it as a good multiplayer game. Just playing with your buddies, clearing out a few levels, come back in a couple of days, and so on. My only gripe, my top gripe, is that it's short for what it is. And like throughout the different levels, I probably put at max maybe 4 to 5 hours into it. It's not really all that long. However, stating that, fellas, it's only like a $20 game from what I'm to understand. I mean, I got through Game Pass. So, I mean, to me, it does its job very well. And I can tell that there's expansions already going through for it. They're already coming. So I'm glad that they have content coming very soon. But yeah, definitely, to everybody listening in and in the chat, definitely check out Minecraft Dungeons. You may be pleasantly surprised. All right, fellas, we will move on
I will say it was funny that people were kind of poo-pooing the review scores of like, see what Microsoft touches Minecraft, look what happens to it. Like you do know they've quadrupled their total unit sales from Minecraft since they bought them. But
Yeah, we were
yeah, they
talking
totally
about
went to
that.
crap.
What year did Minecraft come out?
Like 20.
Wasn't it like 2010 or 2011,
It was
something
after.
like that?
I think it was after. I think it was after that because
I
they were
thought it was
only
earlier
out
than
for, or maybe it was because they bought them pretty early, around 50 units sold when Microsoft bought them, and now they're over at 200 million.
Yeah, Microsoft bought them in September of 2014, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, right around
and
then.
they bought them for
May 17th, 2009 was when Minecraft was first released.
Ooh, wow, even before that. Yeah, and I remember when Microsoft they what was it? They got a deal for it with Mojang. This was way before they bought them to get it onto the Xbox. And it literally came down to like the night before, apparently, to sign a deal.
So this is weird. It says initially released as what is now known as Minecraft Classic on May 17th, 2009. The game was fully released on November 18th, 2011. So whatever that means. I don't know enough about Minecraft to know what it was before 2011.
Yeah, I don't.
But I just that's why it was kind of like when you brought up the review scores. It was like that graph I sent you guys in the chat last week.
Right.
Like just how things have differed from then and now. Back in those days, if you got an 80, you were doing good. If you got a 70, you were just fine. But now apparently the grading curve has changed, and
I think a lot of it is just that color, just that perception of it not being green. Now it's yellow, so it's like as soon as it hits that yellow mark, it's like it's crap.
I know, and
if it's a 72 or 74, whatever it is, to turn green, it's like, oh, now it's okay.
My problem is what I talked about when I believe it was here when we first talked about it, was I don't like how Metacritic assigns points based on the popularity of the reviewer site. I don't think that basically that means IGN has more say-so over a competing platform that's not as popular. Meanwhile, the person who did the review at IGN is ticked off that Minecraft is not like Diablo 3. You can't stick a kid on Diablo 3 and expect them to have as great a time as you could on Minecraft Dungeons. And a lot of reviews, it was like, well, if you're expecting Diablo 3, blah, 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 it's not going to be as, in depth or as hard as, it's like, guys, it's Minecraft. It's meant to be actually experience. The age group for Minecraft, or the demographic that game was created for, is much larger than the demographic for Diablo 3. If you look at it at least from a developer point of view, what is the age range for your game? And even though I know kids do play Diablo 3, the developer was thinking of probably an older crowd. So,
right.
That's where I was just saying, like, I don't like how these reviews are sometimes based on, this isn't a great game because it's not Diablo 3. No, it's not Diablo 3. It's Minecraft Dungeons. Why do you have to always knock a game for not being like another game?
Exactly. And hey, I gave it a shot. Again, I'm not exactly the biggest Minecraft fan out there. I tried it a couple of nights ago with a friend of mine, and we had a good time. But it was like, you know what, Dungeons just hit a good spot for me, and I like it. And if a guy like me can enjoy it, then I can definitely, I highly suggest it to everybody in the chat. Definitely give Minecraft Dungeons a try. Guys, we have lots of stuff to cover tonight, but the first topic is definitely really, it's really encouraging, in my opinion, when it comes to the Xbox Series X ecosystem. And in a post on Xbox Wire, Jason Ronald, the director of program management for the Xbox Series X, announced quite a few features coming to the backwards compatibility library. HDR will be added automatically to older games with zero impact on performance. There will also be quick resume that'll be designed to work with older titles and, just picking up playing your game from where you left off, just like the new ones. Very interesting feature to say the least there. Now, guys, I'm going to leave this open to whoever wants to go for it first. Guys, we see these lists of enhancements. Are they significant additions to the Xbox? Like that Xbox is adding in like HDR, quick resume?
I think HDR can definitely be a really big boost, especially if like say Sony's not implementing that. Like I was playing, like I said last week, Injustice, going back to that, Injustice 2, and that game looks really ashy. Like it's just missing something. There's like a color, it's like there's just not, the color's not popping on any of these characters, which shouldn't be the case when you have like I forget their flame guy in DC's comics, but like some of those characters, and just like, man, this should pop a little bit more. But when I go to playing like Killer Instinct, like everything pops, like it's fully vibrant in color. So I think HDR going into that could really help. That was never intended in the first place. But especially like the frames per second, that's definitely going to be a huge boost, going from like 30. I think they said any game that was 30 has the possibility to go to 60, and then 60 to 120. So that'll be pretty cool. We've never really had that going into a generation where you're basically getting possibly free remasters like we are, where you're going to be like trying, like PC gamers do. Like they get a new graphics card and like, let me try this game now with this newer card that I couldn't really run it the way I wanted it, or with ultra settings before. You just want to go and test it out. So there's that kind of cool aspect too. So definitely think it's a good idea, or a good program that they're putting in place.
Now, can I hop in and ask, did they say this is going to be on all of their games when it comes to this backwards compatibility, enhancements?
If HDR is going to Fusion Frenzy, I would think so, but
well, from what I'm to understand, HDR should just automatically be added to, for the most part, everything. Unless there's some kind of confliction with something that we don't really know about, but they probably let us know like closer to launch. But otherwise, they're basically saying all titles, like thousands of bloody games, and yeah, they're able to enhance them. As far as the quick resume goes, it seems like it's the same case as well. The only thing that might be on a per game basis is adding the ability to double the frame rate of select titles. Now, either it's from 30 frames per second to 60 frames, or 60 frames to 120 frames. It depends on the type of game, I'm assuming, but otherwise, all games for the most part are going to be seeing a big upgrade.
That's going to be pretty awesome. Yeah, it's going to definitely make me start tackling probably some of the older titles on my backlog, because I still want to go back and play Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic.
Yeah, and it'll be great for, Forza Horizon 3 was only 30 frames per second on the Xbox, whereas they bumped it up to 60 on at least I don't think they went back and fixed it for 3. I'm not sure, but I know it was 30 at least when it released, and then they made it 60 for Forza Horizon 4. So it'll be cool, because I think a lot of times that's people's favorite, the one in Australia. So that'd be cool to bump that one up.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. That one, you know what, I got to admit, I've had Forza Horizon 4 on my back burner for a while now, which is insane because I absolutely love the Horizon series, but I don't know, man, I just played so much of them. I just have it sitting there, and I'm tuning into other games right now. I feel kind of guilty just having it sitting on my shelf, but three is really good. Actually, well, all of them are for the most part, but yeah, 3 generally is pretty well liked and loved and cherished. But yeah, you know what? I really like the fact that they're doing these free updates to games pretty much, and it's for the most part the entire back library. Now, they stated that there are already thousands of games playable on the Xbox Series X. How important is it to have thousands of older games in the Xbox Series X library just ready to play at launch?
Oh yeah, go ahead, Centurion.
Oh, I just think it's awesome. This is going to be the first generation where you're not going to have to essentially trade in a console well, not even trade in a console. Get rid of your older console and get a new one, and just say goodbye to all your old games. You're actually going to be bringing your last generation with you, and at least on the Microsoft side, you're going to be bringing multiple generations with you, and I think it's absolutely awesome.
Absolutely. And I remember at the beginning of this generation, fellas, I mean, I was pretty content with what we had, like, as far as the exclusive game goes and the library. Like, there was Rise, for example, for Xbox. There was Dead Rising 3, Forza 5, and Killer Instinct, although some of those were a little short in the content. But there were games in my back library that I'm like, you know what? There's kind of a lull period here with some of the games releasing after the initial launch, and I went back to my 360 to go through a few games, and it's really nice that they're able to transition like all over the library because. Go ahead.
I was going to say, just think about it like this: with the fact that console manufacturers now are not going to try to put up this wall at the end of every generation, we're able to see companies like CD Projekt Red release a game on the caliber of Cyberpunk 2077 literally 4 months from the end of a console generation. You're going to be able to take that game and carry it over to your new console, because through smart delivery, or what you also want to call backwards compatibility, you're going to be able to play that game on a Series X, even if you bought it during the Xbox One generation. And I just think this is going to mean towards the end of generations now, we're not going to be hindered of having no games at the end of a generation, because no developer is going to want to release their game at the end of a generation when consoles aren't going to be that console is basically going to stop being the number one console. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Definitely. What you're saying is going to relate to a lot of gamers, I'm sure. Definitely to me. It's just impressive what they're doing. You see, they're definitely saying themselves. They're separating themselves from what obviously Nintendo's doing, and especially what Sony's doing. They're being extremely consumer friendly, and I really like that aspect of them. Like right now, they're playing nice, and it's hard to really not like what they're doing. I mean, of course, I really like the fact that I'll be able to take my old original Xbox disc of Crimson Skies, plug it in there, and it'll be updated. It's the exact same game. I don't have to spend a dime on anything, and it's just ready to go, and it'll be improved. Like, what's not to like about that?
It'd be really cool if they can get original Xbox games online, since there is people in the PC space that are getting that up and running. Or I think in just the modding community in general, you'll be soon be able to get on your original Xbox hardware and play online on limited servers. So it'd be really cool, since 360 games still work that way. If they can just at least get it up for those select few titles, because it's not like there's a ton of games from the OG Xbox anyway. But that'd be cool if they could just somehow get that to work. But
yeah, the thing is though, when you look at the current backwards compatibility list for the Xbox One, obviously they stopped updating it. There's only a select number of OG games, unfortunately. So most of the ones, they do have a nice selection there. However, they're missing a whole bunch of key exclusives. Like, how much I love Mech Assault. Come on, like they gotta have.
They closed down.
Well, Microsoft still has the rights, as far as I know. So.
Yeah, they just closed down. Yeah, I think that was the Don closed that one down. Yeah. But I think also, what was I going to say with the OG? I think they're going to still add to it. I think they just put a halt on it so they can make sure all the Xbox One official games could work with the new hardware. So I think they're going to pick back up. At least I hope, because they said it's all up to the publisher, and they got some Sega games on there. So it was weird that they added Panzer Dragoon, but not Jet Set. Yeah, I don't think Jet Set Future got on there. So that was that's another Sega game. So if all they had to do is get permission, but I'm guessing that's probably where they just had, hey, we need to focus on Xbox One games, make sure that's 100% first, and then we'll maybe pick back up later, hopefully.
Yeah, comment in the chat. They closed it down, but they have 15 studios. Yeah, this was from years ago. Years ago. They slowly did a culling of studios. Unfortunately, I mean, there was that studio. You know what? The name is not coming to me at this point in time. Unfortunately, but you look at Ensemble Games as well. They had done what was it, Age of Empires. They did Halo Wars, and then they shuttered them in 2010 or 2009, I believe. They closed a bunch of studios.
Shut down the AMP dev and said, "Screw it, we're not going to make that NFL fever anymore. We're going to let EA do all of it."
Yeah, so it's definitely fastback. Phil has mentioned Mech Assault, but think there is one similar on Steam. You know what? Um, Phil has talked about Mech Assault. I even did a video on it a couple of years ago, wanting to bring Mech Assault back. It's just, you know what? There's things rumbling right now. Apparently, there's a mech game in the works. If you believe what Clobriel, his statements going back a couple of years ago, anything's possible. And then there have been comments from the dev working on MechWarrior, Piranha Games there about, they've been talking with Microsoft about something. This was about a year or so ago. They've been going back and forth, but they can't share anything. So I'll be very curious. Be very curious to see what comes out of that, if they will make an announcement at their event in July or at another point in time in the near future. But definitely very curious to see if there's anything in the Mech Assault future.
If there's a partnership with Sega, Sega could take that on, since they did. I think they're the ones, or no, that was Capcom that did Steel Battalion, right?
Yes, with the
I was thinking of Sega for a second.
The Megalith controller, the huge controller. Don't even want to call it a controller. You guys know what I mean. But
I think Sega could also. They're big in arcades, so I think they could take on maybe like a Mech Assault game, that type of action game.
Yeah, I don't know about everybody else. I like mech games personally. I don't know. It's my thing. What can I say? I'm big on the mech games. Sega did Chrome Hounds. Yeah, you were correct. Wasn't that From Software? From Software did
I think
it.
It was. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that'd be that would be very interesting. Lots of Sega talk right now. Funny enough, we will get to that later in the show. But yeah, there's been lots of teases with Sega. All right, fellas. Do you guys have anything else to add to this?
Backwards compatibility rocks.
Well, I think most people would agree with that. I mean, it's hard not to really enjoy just the ease of it.
I almost believed my sheep herder when he told me that no one plays old games, and I had to really kind of go home and have some self-reflection on what I wanted as a consumer.
Yeah, and I think that stat's kind of misleading, because we just never entered in a gen where so many people have their investment in a digital library like they do now. And plus, on day one, you're having possibly full backwards compatibility, and you're getting all these great features with SSD. The loading times are going to be super quick, as well as the HDR implementation. And this frames per second. We weren't able to do that with even the 360 games to Xbox One. We've maybe had stable or more stable frame rates than what they were like Ninja Gaiden 2, but you didn't have all those other boosts. So I think that's going to be a cool thing where people are going to be doing it a lot, especially if there's, if this whole virus thing and everything that's going on is making game development slow, and there's not as many at next gen games hitting the day one launch window. So I think it might be a bigger stat this time around.
Yep, no, that's for sure, fellas. Yeah, well, again, I love backwards compatibility. It makes me pretty happy. I remember when they announced it, everybody was like, wow, it really dropped people's jaws back in 2015. So
you know what makes backwards compatibility gratifying is when you go to try to buy one of these titles that were backwards compatible, but contracts ran out. We'll use oh my god, Overlord. That game, the first game, it's a backwards compatible game, but they're not allowed to sell it digitally anymore, at least here in the States, because of some reason. But so I went to my local GameStop and actually found actual Xbox 360 version of it on the disc. And that's what I loved about it, was like you can actually go out and get the physical game and put it in there and still play it, even though you can't buy it digitally now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I've been doing. They're still dirt cheap compared to the marketplace's kind of a price, or they're pretty high priced on some of them. So unless you catch it on like a sale.
On some of them, yes, but
usually they're around $10. But yeah,
the
some of them
popular
are
ones, like if you go looking for
$20-$30.
If you go looking for like Knights of the Old Republic on the original Xbox, sometimes they want like a lot for that game, what you would pay for it brand new. I mean, excuse me, digitally. And you know, that's one thing now you're buying a disc that is literally what, 20 years old, almost 20 years old, and they're wanting a very large price for it, and you can go buy it digitally for the same price, and you don't got to worry about having problems with the disc. So definitely, I remember when
basically.
Yeah, I definitely have seen a couple places for the popular games actually try to mark them up. Just
the second they hit, this one just dropped backwards compatibility. You see the price for like Conquer skyrocket on eBay to like $60.
I remember when the Ghostbusters game became backwards compatible before the remaster.
Mm-hmm.
That game was like dirt cheap, and all of a sudden it became backwards compatible. That thing skyrocketed to $25. Same with
Call of Duty. Whenever that would hit, it would shoot up on GameStop and Amazon. GameStop would raise the price, I think, on a few times.
That's actually the place I saw it mostly come from, was GameStop, because when you would go into the store and all of a sudden they have the original Knights of the Old Republic displayed, like it's not on the wall, but it's on a mezzanine in the middle of the floor, but it's still displayed. It's just like, now all of a sudden this game's backwards compatible, and it was sitting in a back room and you didn't care last week, but now it's out here with a $20 price tag on it because you heard it became backwards compatible.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. Backwards compatibility offers so much to gamers, and just extremely friendly. I mean, there's not really too much not to like about it. The chat is it seems to be pretty positive about it. I don't see why anyone wouldn't be, but I don't know, guys. But you know what, guys? We will move on to the next set of news, and Xbox head Phil Spencer states that you may not appreciate how much better next-gen games are until you can feel the improvements that come with the increased frame rates. Now, on Reggie Fils-Aimé's new podcast, Phil acknowledged that it's been challenging to demonstrate the power of next-generation consoles, that Microsoft is facing new dilemmas trying to convey the appeal of much faster frame rates, and all the other goodies associated with new consoles, etc. Now, again, guys, I'm just gonna put this out there to anyone that wants to go for it first. Is Phil overstating things here, or because honestly, like, console makers, they are worrying right now that they can't show off the true capabilities of these consoles, or is it just is he just kind of overstating things?
Yeah, I think with some of the things that they're implementing in this next gen, it's hard to kind of display that, even with that Unreal trailer and demo, to really show that off through like your whatever the bandwidth is with YouTube or Twitter, to really see you're not really seeing the HDR, other than like when you show with Minecraft. That was a good way to actually show it off, because it was such a difference. To actually make it like, oh, wow, it looks like a completely different game. So I think that's probably what he's getting at. But also with the frame rate, because we're used to most like third-person games still doing 30 frames a second, unless it's maybe a first-party like Gears or Halo. So I think when you see that, and especially the jump to 120, that's going to be a huge thing that I don't know if maybe old Twitch shooters and maybe old like retro games may have had a super high frame rate like that, but nothing in recent memory that I could think of that was 120. So it's, that's an experience in itself that some gamers have never experienced. Might not even have a TV that can actually experience it. I think mine locks at 60, so I think I have to upgrade that to even get that other than my monitor. So those would be cool things to experience that most gamers haven't, tried out yet.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's frustrating too. I can definitely feel what Phil's saying here, because it's frustrating from their perspective. I can see it. They got this new console coming out, even on Sony's side too, and nobody was expecting this huge dilemma, this situation that we have going on in the world with the current disease virus that's been making the rounds, unfortunately. And these companies, much like the rest of the world, have had to adjust to these circumstances, and now they got this product coming out in a few months, and they're finding it really difficult to showcase it. They can't demo it properly. Nobody can stand in line and just play the game to actually see for themselves. So there's definitely obstacles here, unfortunately, for them. And a lot of people are going to be tuning into these online showcases, and they're like, well, you know what, it looks like what I've been playing on my Xbox One or PlayStation 4, but I'm not seeing that much of a difference, and I guess they kind of suffer because of that.
I don't see, that's where, because there's more issues with, they can't really do a very I don't know, maybe I'm wrong on this, but maybe they, from what I've seen on the internet, at least with everything going on, is they can't do a show that is very, very heavy when it comes to the demand of just how much internet you need, because obviously a lot of these internet companies have lowered down bandwidth and slowed a lot of services for people. So I really don't know if they're able to display these live events in the quality that people are looking for to begin with, because when they upload it, people are saying, like, the uploads on YouTube, the vast majority of them look absolutely great, but when you watch it on a live event, it looks like trash, just because of the state of the internet infrastructure around the world, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I think even when you saw Ghost of Tsushima, that first live stream, it was looking rough. And then when they finally re-uploaded it, it was like, oh, wow, this looks way better. So things like that can really make it hard to really show the new next gen.
And then, like you're saying,
still.
Like you're saying, people aren't able to get in line to see these, because I'll say it, I actually got to play on an Xbox One X before they were even sold in the public. They had an event here in Arizona, and I went to it, and I saw what I was going to get. They handed me the controller, gave me a t-shirt, and I got to play Forza Horizon 4 before it even came out, and it was on the Xbox One X, and I was totally excited because they had it hooked up to a QLED. I do not own a QLED or an OLED. I would love one day. But anyways, definitely it's going to be really hard to kind of sell these products to people without being able to properly show what they're capable of. And the downside also is, like, what Shockley was talking about, most TVs don't really do over 60 frames a second. So are they even able to show the true capabilities of this console on a standard television?
That's a good question, but I mean, that's why you'd have some of these demos out, right, to showcase. And unfortunately, that kind of sucks. And you look at it from Microsoft.
Some of the bigger name brands do.
Some of the bigger
I think
name
Samsung and Sony, but like my TCL doesn't, unless it's the 70-inch model. Then that one they've allowed to do 120. But
see, that's where I'm not
budget HDR.
See, that's why I hate using the term budget or the value brand television. People afford what they can afford, and more often than not, people are affording these non-name brand televisions that sometimes don't have like the refresh rates or the HDR that's all there. Because like I actually have two Samsungs here. I have a Samsung back when HDR was just coming around, so the HDR on my living room television is crap compared to the Samsung 8000 in my bedroom. And I mean, like, when you put something on that screen with the HDR, it is a night and day difference. I mean, I love watching television on that 8000.
Definitely. It's an interesting position for Microsoft, especially this gen, because obviously, well, they kind of got a shit kicking right at the beginning of it, unfortunately, and they've had to slowly climb their way back. And you look at how things are looking. Everybody was excited for E3, and then again this thing came up, this virus, and now it's a big change of plans to all these companies.
Not to just jump in and interrupt again, but there is one thing that just popped into my head on how Microsoft could possibly go about demoing this product. Hopefully somewhere someone's listening. I would find probably the most logical, level-minded content creators I could on YouTube, and I don't want to say give them a Series X, maybe let them have one for a short period of time, or would be it just allow these guys that know what they're talking about and definitely have the joy of gaming, have these consoles for a little while and then publish their thoughts on what it was like to actually play on a console like that and their experiences. And that would probably go over a lot better than just trying to convince people that these consoles are worth it.
Are you talking about influencers?
Yeah, sorry, influencers. Yes, influencers. But you would have to really choose the right ones that definitely would.
I think they could do Austin.
Take it seriously.
Austin Evans, who they gave it some of it with, like, he got to play Minecraft and Gears. He was the other guy other than Digital Foundry that they allowed to test it out or kind of give his feedback. So I think he's pretty objective. Kevin Kinson, heck, you could do even Spawnwave from more of the gaming side community.
Yes.
So I think those are all. I think there's definitely plenty of ones they can find.
Now, here's an interesting thought, because obviously Microsoft is promoting more cross-gen right now. For the next year or so, they're going to be putting their exclusives still on the Xbox One, but obviously having, well, more features from the sounds of things on the Xbox Series X and, better graphics, frame rates, etc. But, I mean, with cross-gen, they're in a pretty good place, right? Because people don't need to necessarily go out, like everybody's being affected by the way that things are. People are already gonna, Xbox fans are already gonna have these consoles, right? So at the same time, they're not gonna hurt as much going forward. Whereas, actually, I'll be interested to see how Sony does, to be honest with you, because they're really pushing forward with the next gen with a PlayStation 5. But,
I can see where Xbox has a boost there, like if there were like any shortages, with everything that's being affected. Because Sony can't really sell you their next-gen game if you don't have their console, whereas Microsoft's still going to sell you Halo if you're on PC, Xbox One, or Series X. So,
well, that's what I'm talking about, because, again, their games are going to be everywhere, whether it be on the xCloud or, I mean, that's still obviously in beta, but I mean, it is going to be coming at presumably if things are on track at the end of the year officially. PC, Xbox One, and of course the Series X, but it's going to be all over the place, whereas PlayStation is, well, they're really, again, pushing forward with a PlayStation 5. So, they have, strategically, Microsoft's in a pretty good place, even with the Xbox One. So it's kind of, in a way, this situation is becoming kind of interesting in accordance with, like, the console situation. But you know what, guys, we will move on to another topic. Again, it's very interesting to see, like, Phil's comments here, and again, like, seeing these companies just demo the games, like, not being able to do that, unfortunately. I'll be very curious to see how they entertain things going into their own events. But speaking of that, we will head right into pretty big news, and Sony has announced a PlayStation 5 event for June 4th. Now, that's extremely soon, obviously just a few days away, for crying out loud. And they're intent on showcasing gameplay from like large and small studios. Now, again, guys, whenever you want to jump in, that's fine. Whoever wants to be first on this topic, like, we really don't know what they'll be showing off, Sony. But ideally, guys, what would you like to see PlayStation announce at this event? Like, what kinds of games and so on?
Oh, I'm gonna go first. Shockley's always been going first. Now, PlayStation. What would I like to see them show? Well, we already know they're going to show us probably some amazing first-party games. Some of them that we've already known about for a very long time that have been advertised to us year after year. I hope there's some new IPs in there to kind of get us hyped for next gen. I hope there's some confirmation on some of these sequels. Just because these games are absolute raved successes, I will never, ever get my hopes up until it's absolutely confirmed that there is somebody working on some of these games. But definitely, I would like to see some more details on the PS5. I'm hoping they kind of let us see the form. I don't believe they're going to reveal a price. I know both of these companies are going to be literally playing this cat and mouse game with the price tag. I believe. I hope not. But the big major thing was, I kind of remember what you said about what I believe you said it was what Jim Ryan said that they were going to show at this event. Didn't he say that? About they were going to show true exclusives?
That's correct. They're basically... Okay, so... Jim Ryan, he did speak with Game Industry Biz recently, and he was asked whether Sony is planning on supporting exclusives across both generations, kind of similar to what Microsoft's statements have been, and with the Xbox One and the Xbox Series X. Now, this is what Ryan stated. He said, "We believe in generations, and whether it's the DualSense controller, whether it's 3D audio, whether it's multiple ways that the SSD can be used, we are thinking that it's time to give the PlayStation community something new, something different, that can really only be enjoyed on the PS5. Now, basically, that's with going forward with the PS5, yeah, they believe that in the true exclusives for the console generation, Centurion.
See, that to me, it's like true exclusives. So, true exclusives mean that they're only specific to that platform.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where I want to kind of forgive me. I'm just gonna be blunt about it. Are you lying through your teeth to me? Because Microsoft has no problem letting people know they're gonna put a title on PC, where PlayStation literally tries to sneakishly behind your back make you think that this is going to be an exclusive, and once they've made their money off of you, they're going to plaster it all over PC anyways because they want more money. But they go about doing it totally different than Microsoft. I feel Microsoft is more open and definitely wants to support the PC crowd openly, where PlayStation has dabbled in putting games on PC in the past, and we all know this is the future for gaming. To basically be successful and continue making money, you got to put your game on more platforms, and the PC market is definitely an intriguing market to Sony. We'll just say that, and that's where I have an issue with the idea of true exclusives, because at least I know Microsoft isn't going to come out on stage and intentionally lie to me.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting the different strategies involved with both Xbox and PlayStation now. They're definitely branching out. In fact, Aaron Greenberg, head of Xbox marketing, he made a statement a couple of days ago that Xbox believes in generations of games that play on latest hardware, taking advantage of next-gen innovation, offering more choice, value, and variety than any console launch ever. All our studio titles launch into Game Pass, and you get those next-gen games upgrades for free. So, definitely some different wording here. He's talking about Game Pass as well. And just the value of choice and variety that, again, people didn't have before like we did this gen earlier on.
Yeah, which I think is them talking about like generations. It's just them just letting you know that if you want their new game or whatever games they show off, you're going to have to buy that new console. Whereas like Microsoft's whole thing is like Game Pass, they just want you in their ecosystem. That's their most important thing to them right now. Because if you go back to the PS4, what did they release? Snack, Killzone. Those games could have been on the PS3. I'm sorry. Even if you want to say visually Killzone because it looks stunning, it was also 30 frames a second. And okay, well, game design wise, like gameplay, it was nothing special. So you could have still made that same game, and look how Witcher and Doom look on the Switch. Look, pretty bad compared to like an Xbox One X or a PC. So I'm like, you still see that, wow, it looks great on the PC. Wow, it looks terrible. Or, definitely a downgrade on the Switch. So there was no games. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
The games at the beginning of the console do not blow you away. It's usually, unless it's a groundbreaking thing like Halo, from a game, like that was just more of like, there just wasn't that game implemented in the right way, that genre on console, other than like GoldenEye, which was, 10 frames a second. But yeah, I don't see that's basically all it is. All of them just telling you, hey, you want to buy a console? And that's totally fine. That's the way they want to kind of go about it. Microsoft's doing another way. I think you saw that article with Paul Tossi from Forbes. He was saying like, Sony's doing it the right way, Microsoft's doing it the wrong way. And I'm like, they're selling it on PC, so they don't care if you're just buying their Xbox Series X. If you're still buying all their subscriptions and buying all their games and tied into their ecosystem, they're still getting your money. It's like an iPhone. If I have the newest one or I have iPhone 9e, I'm still buying all my apps and everything through Apple. So they're still getting my money. So.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. And this whole thing about the ecosystem, it's really refreshing that we're able to have these conversations going into next gen in comparison to earlier this last gen, because I purposely, I bought some digital games on the 360, for example, but I was wondering, I'm like, are they going to carry over these games into the next set of consoles? Because again, people were starting to invest more in digital, for example, and I didn't personally want to carry over, like, I was kind of worried that my games wouldn't be able to carry over, or my saves and so on. And within a couple of years, I'm like, oh, you know what, they're not doing it. And lo and behold, Microsoft does that. They carry over all these games, and it was just fantastic. And they've been adding to it. And the whole thing about generations, it's just, I call it a legacy personally, just because they're remembering the game titles that were in their previous library. And I think it's a great idea just to be able to branch over all these game titles from previous generations. Like, I don't know. To me, it's a smart consumer move.
To bring up one game, if you don't mind, of where backwards compatibility actually is a favor to us. I actually mentioned it earlier. So the Ghostbusters game that came out during the Xbox 360 generation, that, like, I'm a big movie guy, and I'm not dissing the Ghostbusters remake with all the female actors, but it was definitely not what the Ghostbuster fans were looking for, and it had nothing to do with the actresses. It had everything to do with just the world, on how much they changed the Ghostbusters world. They were hoping for a continuation. What was real, now this is where we get with backwards compatibility. That Ghostbusters game that came out during the 360 era was actually written when I believe Harold Ramis was also still alive.
Yes, him and Dan Aykroyd wrote the script.
Dan Aykroyd, and actually Bill Murray helped him do some of the vocals. They actually got people, like, they actually got together to create this game, to create this script. This game is touted as the Ghostbusters movie we should have got when they did that remake. And this is where backwards compatibility is a benefit to us, because would you rather sit around listening to people talk about this great game, or actually be able to go and play this game. And it was actually such a successful thing that this game gained so much popularity as a result that even though it was backwards compatible, they still went in and remastered that game. And don't get me wrong, it's not nothing groundbreaking. The Proton stream looks absolutely amazing. The Proton pack has all this HDR on it. It looks awesome, but it's not. They changed it. Anyways, I'm just saying that's a good example in my head of why backwards compatibility is a must, because it keeps games like this from fading away into non-existence.
Yeah, absolutely. But the whole thing too is like at the beginning of any gen, kind of like what I was stating earlier. There's after you play maybe the first 2-3 games you pick up, there's usually a lull, and you're kind of bored. So that's why some people go back to their pile of games sitting on their previous console, their older console, because there's a backlog, and it's like, well, it's kind of nice that I'll be able to carry over those games.
Yeah. Remember the Titanfall? Everybody was like blown away from its gameplay. But guess what? The biggest one that had the biggest buzz from E3 that was on 360 as well. So like it could still work, and you can still blow people away with the gameplay. Obviously, that was short lived because it didn't have a campaign or a story mode like Titanfall 2. But that was just more I guess maybe didn't want to put as much into it until they kind of saw the results. But that's a perfectly good example. Huge buzz, probably more buzz than some of the early, even infamous Second Son and some of the other Sony exclusives, and that was a 360 game on both consoles. So.
Yeah, well, the thing with that was it was Respawn's first game, and everybody was wondering what the heck, Vince Zampella and like a whole bunch of the old Call of Duty team were creating, right? And then, Microsoft, they got Titanfall. They sort of half funded it. And lo and behold, it turned out to be a pretty darn good game. I'm sitting here waiting for Titanfall 3. Like, I'm really, really curious to see. I mean, I don't think it's in development right now, unfortunately, but they better not forget about it, because I would...
Not with Apex.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, right? Like, I'm not much of a hero shooter guy, so I don't really play Apex, but I mean, I can appreciate it, don't get me wrong, but just something about that Titanfall multiplayer. And the campaign in the second one was pretty good. Not gonna lie there. But yeah, guys, it's interesting seeing, comments from Jim Ryan about the whole true exclusives thing. Going back to the actual event coming on the 4th, though, I don't know about everybody else, especially in the chat, I would love to see a new Twisted Metal game, personally. I think that'd
be good to resurrect that. Could you imagine Sweet Tooth and just actually, like, I'm not just like, I actually, like you mentioned Twisted Metal. Imagine the game physics that would be possible now, because back in those days it was just a health bar. You didn't really do anything, but now you could have like, parts of the cars get ripped off, dudes, like actual physical damage. It would be very interesting and amazing what they could do with today's technology in a game like Twisted Metal.
Absolutely. It's just, Twisted Metal is one of those games, like, when I see, well, again, we've only seen so much gameplay, like, the Unreal Engine 5, for example, but, I mean, just imagine, again, the Unreal Engine 5 with running on a PS5, just the thought of that kind of not racing game, but you know what I mean, that arena racing game, and the combat and the particle effects going on from all the explosions and like dust kicking up, and like I'm just thinking of all these things and I'm salivating at the thought,
Dude, like in today's model, like, oh my god, this would be a conversation in itself, but in today's world, Twisted Metal would make an absolute, sorry to say, people, feel how you want, be a great games as a service. You would have, it would be like an arena, you'd have your arena battle. You'd obviously be able to probably play a main campaign, but there would be something geared towards multiplayer. You'd be able to get skins for your characters to kind of, create individuality with them and all sorts of stuff. Like, I really do think there's a lot of potential for the Twisted Metal franchise as something that just, like, look at like Overwatch. People go in there every single night, fight it out. And these characters almost are all individualized by someone's tastes and preferences.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, SOCOM would be a big win for them because I know there's a ton of Sony fans that are huge, or huge fans of the series. So, especially with how Rainbow Six came back, that's definitely one they could implement. And I don't know if they're, but it's been so long, so who knows?
I was actually going to say, yeah, no, that's actually a name I see go around a lot is SOCOM. I played it for like 10, 15 minutes at a friend's house once, but never got into it. But I have heard a lot of people talk about SOCOM. I guess it's like a way better version of Call of Duty.
Uh,
No?
I don't. Well, I don't know about that. Like it was cool in like its day, but because I don't think did they have one on the PS3? They
I
may
don't know
have.
about the PS3. I know it was on PS2.
Yeah, that was the last time I've seen it. Which
I'm pretty sure there was a SOCOM
Yeah.
on PS3,
Okay.
but I think the studio shuttered, if I'm not mistaken. Um, yeah, because it wasn't at Zipper Interactive, if I'm not.
I
Yeah,
can't remember. Probably that sounds familiar.
I'm pretty sure that was the studio. Um, well, yeah, another SOCOM would be cool. I don't know if implementing like a Rainbow Six, like kind of a gameplay would be good for it personally. Just I think it's a different kind of tactical shooter altogether. But hey, you know what? Seeing SOCOM come back, just the name alone, I think would do wonders. I know a lot of PlayStation fans want to see that come back, and hey, all the power to them. I hope that they do reignite that franchise personally. So. But fellas, you know what? We will see what happens in the coming days. There's definitely going to be we're going to see some games. We're going to see some games, and I'm really excited for that. And I definitely want to see what the PlayStation 5 can produce. Now we will move on to our next subject at hand, and Centurion, you're going to like this. Developer at Ebb Software, currently making the sci-fi horror game Scorn, has been rather chatty over the past month since the game was revealed as a console exclusive for the Xbox Series X. Why is it exclusive? Well, according to Lubomir Peklar, it's very simple. And that's his words. He says is good performance of the game. Good performance of the game is important to us, and the Xbox Series X is a very capable hardware that enables parity with the PC version of the game. We can't discuss anything regarding the PlayStation. That's what he says. Now, Centurion, I'll definitely head over to you on this one. I know you've been very interested in the game and the developer, as we spoke earlier. And judging by what he's saying, is parity with the PC a huge selling point to the game developers, just towards the Xbox Series X?
Now, when you so I'm just trying to that's where I've been trying to understand the question. So you're saying they're trying to leverage the fact it's going to be just like a high-end PC on the Series X as it's going to be its main selling point. That will definitely be something that will turn some heads, because when was the last time you heard anybody said a console had parity with a PC?
Yeah, you don't hear that too often. It's just the developer chose it, well, supposedly, because, again, it's going to be able to hit those specific specifications. So, I mean, you're dealing with a pretty powerful kit with the Xbox Series X.
Yeah, definitely. Especially with, at least with what I read on what is going on. They want to have some physics in the game that are pretty, I don't want to call them revolutionary, but they want to have an amount of detail in the game you don't really see a lot of guys put interest on. Like, in most games, when you run up to an object and grab it, it's just like this clean swipe movement, and the object's actually physically in your hand. They want it to be where when you grab an object, you physically see your hand go underneath this object and actually pick it up and physically hold it, you're actually physically interacting with this object. Same with the computers and other things that go on in the game. They want there to be like a physical connection, and I mean, there's a massive amount of detail to this game, and I think its detail and just what it's trying to do is going to be one of the main reasons why it's on Series X to begin with. And it's really good to see that a game developer was not willing to lower their ambitions or standards just to get a game on a platform. They instead decided to wait for a more powerful system, because we all know this game was actually shown in 2017 at E3, and it kind of went radio silent since then. And now here we are with the Series X, and they're ready to try to release this game, and it's going to be definitely an experience I want to check out. And because it's going to be on Game Pass, it's going to be possible.
Definitely. It was interesting. I've been reading up on this game over the past week. Well, since it got announced for the Xbox Series X, but I found it so interesting that since they demoed that game a couple of years ago, going into the Series X, they've had to like recreate the game for like about 80% of it. Like they've had to completely rework it. It's pretty amazing when you think about the scope.
Yeah, and like that, like as that gameplay that was actually in my video came from back in I believe it was September of 2017. It was a gameplay video, and yeah, they were actually saying that, you know, pretty much 80% of that small little slice that was shown is completely different, and that can be said about a majority of the game, and I think that's cool.
No, absolutely. Again, Scorn, you know, I could understand them wanting to push the envelope with this game graphically, because this game has a certain art style to it. We touched on it earlier that, again, it has this very earthy, organic feel to it, and it's not just going to be like metal hallways. It's not just going to be like empty corridors. Like everything around you, it's going to look like, I want to say that it's living and breathing in a lot of ways. And it just seems like they really want to be able, like, for the player to get that sense of you're in a living, breathing like environment when you look at what they're trying to do with the game.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's insane, the scope that you got to just go on the Kickstarter page and read from the developers just the amount of scope that they have wanted to put into this game.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Peklar recently commented on the SSDs and the CPUs being used
This
in
is
the
where
next
people are gonna be mad. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, no, and you're absolutely right. It's definitely I've seen some of the conversations
Dude,
on Twitter.
How many developers are gonna come out and poke holes in this SSD freaking time warp flux capacitor device that apparently is able to bend the space-time continuum? But go ahead and inform the world once again what everybody's been saying.
So he commented on the SSDs and CPUs being used in the next gen consoles. And Peklar stated that while the SSDs will bring improvements, like he's saying that, it's a good thing overall, it's the power of the actual CPU that will be the biggest change with the Xbox Series X, the pure power that it has. Now, I mean, Centurion, like, do you, like, just judging by what we've been reading about, like, the tech behind this, do you agree with his statement about the CPU versus the SSD?
Yes, he also made a comment saying that our biggest shortfall this gen is the CPU in these consoles. These consoles have not had one problem when it comes to the hard drive on these consoles. Yes, we understand an SSD is way better than what's in these consoles now. So there's going to be an obvious performance boost from there. But like he said, the big shortfall this gen was the GPUs in these consoles, which is why these, at least the Series X, has this monster of a GPU living inside of it, because Microsoft knew the main problem was the GPU, and therefore they wanted to give an SSD that worked well with the GPU. Like, people some people don't really. Everybody, I remember when the Series X came. Not the Series X. The Xbox One X came out at first, and it had that just small hard drive space. Everybody was like, "Why does it have that small hard drive space?" In the very first ones that were released. And one of the hardware developers explained was they wanted to use a larger hard drive. The only problem was the optimization wasn't there between that hard drive and the other equipment in the box. So they went with a smaller hard drive that was better optimized to work better with everything in that box, which is why Microsoft doesn't always try to slap parts off the shelf into a box. They look at the overall project and how they can make one part work well with another. Now I'm rambling. And silence.
No, I think the SSD I think is definitely going to be the biggest boom, and it's funny, everybody's saying like, oh, well, look at all the praise the PS5's getting because of their SSD and what it's going to do. And I'm like, when you actually read the comments from all these devs that are praising it, they're talking about SSD in general. They're not saying, wow, the difference from Microsoft's SSD to PS5s is just going to change everything. No, that's not what they're saying. But I think that's going to allow them just to load in the assets. So, just take a load off of the like the GPU for one. But yeah, I think both of them are big boosts. That's the one ball that kind of got dropped there with Xbox One X, and I understand they probably had to keep the CPU similar just to make it more easily compatible for devs, probably. But now you're not going to have the CPU holding back the GPU. So Xbox One X got a beefy GPU, got put it into it, but the CPU is still kind of that old Jaguar core, whereas this one has a CPU with a equipped with the power that it needs, with a GPU to match, with bandwidth on that, with the RAM that's going to be put into it, and now SSD. I mean, that's probably why that Scorn developers, wanting to put it only on these next gen consoles and not wanting to go back and forth. I could definitely see it with that type of art style. You probably want to get every intricate, detail of that art on screen. So that's probably why. But yeah, I think the SSD is going to be probably the biggest boost in my opinion, probably since we went to HD. I think that's just going to be something you can see and, it's tangible. I can jump into my game, 6 games at once, something you can't do. So that's something that's going to come across to the consumer pretty easily.
I liked what he said that a lot of these developers are not going to really truly know how to optimize their game to work with these SSD drives right away. And as time goes on, developers are going to find new and better ways to leverage these SSD hard drives, which are actually going to improve loading times even more and improve game quality even more. Because he's like, this is the first time really you're getting SSD hard drives in console gaming. So there's definitely going to be that period of time where game developers are feeling it out.
Yeah, to me, regarding his comments on the matter, it sounded like he thinks that developers are going to be lazy in a lot of ways, because it's like you can make with these SSDs extremely large worlds that load instantly, but then if they litter it with just like the same old stuff, it's not really pushing anything forward now, is it?
Did I say GPU and I said CPU? I just realized what I did.
Yeah, you said GPU.
Jesus, I am so sorry, guys.
It's all right.
It's what I do, people. I always got to bumble something. Sorry.
It's all right, Centurion. No, to be honest, I didn't even notice. But I think that
saying GPU and CPU 10 times fast to see where you end up.
I think the chat will forgive you on this one, but I don't know about for the next show. So better review your notes, pal. But either way, guys, I'm really interested in this Scorn dev's comments on the whole matter. He's been very vocal the past month, so obviously he's excited about what the Xbox Series X can bring. Then again, I mean, when you make a deal with Microsoft, I don't think you really have a choice but to be supportive of their hardware. But either way, just very exciting times and very interesting comments by him. Anyways, sorry, my throat's a little dry right now. But moving on to our final topic. And guys, there's been a lot of talk about this one over the past few days, and it seems as if we may indeed have a big Sega announcement on our hands soon. Now, during a live stream, a Japanese tech journalist teased a huge scoop on the level of Wired's PlayStation 5 article last year, which, again, it was very, very popular and very big at the time. His article is out June 4th and states that it will be revolutionary and it will rile up the games industry. I mean, that's some very interesting terminology to use there. I mean, it sounds pretty big. And he later confirmed that it was Sega related. So, yeah, if it's Sega related and rile up the industry, well, very interesting terminology to say the least. Shock, you know what? I'm gonna pick your brains on this one. I know how much I know how much you like talking about Sega. What could this announcement possibly be for? Because we've heard chatter for the past few months now. We've talked about it briefly on the show too about a possible Sega and Microsoft partnership. I mean, what do you see from all this chatter?
Yeah, because I did read that quote. And it gets you thinking, because I think first people were thinking like, oh, maybe they're going to do like a mini or some retro console, which they've already kind of done with, I think, At Games, or I forget the one they did, a mini like Sega Genesis. So I don't think if that's what he's saying, then he's just like overblowing this by quite a bit. But that other rumor that people have been talking about, a potential partnership, either with IP, I'm guessing, with like Sega and Microsoft, there could be kind of a deal made there. But then someone was saying that the way, or at least the quote went, it made it seem like it was maybe something that was maybe like a piece of hardware. So that Lockhart rumor is still out there, and like Rand and I think Jez Corden from Windows Central, we're still hearing that it's still very much alive. So I mean, I think that could be a way to release that, and maybe in Japan, just take off, it's probably going to be a completely different form factor, so it doesn't look just like an Xbox or just like the Xbox Series X. Slap the Sega name on it, maybe have some Sega, I would think at that point, have some Sega deals in place to where you get maybe some exclusives to it, release it in Japan where they love Sega's name. Like, people just don't know, like going back to the Sega Saturn that most people don't even remember, outsold the N64 in Japan and was on pace with the PlayStation at $100 more expensive until Final Fantasy VII dropped and blew it away. So like Sega's name still carries a lot of weight because they're still big, like in the arcade scene there. So they're still very well known and cherished. So I think if they were willing to put a lot of especially they own Persona, a lot of Yakuza, there's a lot of Japanese games. If they made, say, exclusive, I don't know what they would do here, but that could be the one for Lockhart, and then that kind of helps with Microsoft with like the whole like, hey, you're going to confuse the consumer or whatever. Well, you could just release that maybe in Sega Europe, maybe do a small batch here, but it's not as confusing because guess what? If the mom and pop go to Best Buy, oh, I want the one that says Sega, or I want the one that says Xbox Series X. Solves the confusion issue, and you're hitting those other markets that you've been blown away in by Sony and Nintendo. So that's what I'm guessing from based off that quote.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, the quote in itself is very hyperbolic, to say the least. I mean, you could go anywhere with it. It's it's very exciting. The prospect of Microsoft and Sega just kind of joining forces is I mean, that would definitely rile up the game industry. I mean, that would change things for sure. It would definitely shape the landscape. But NLG Gaming does bring up a good point. I mean, remember, Sega is owned by another company, I believe Sega Sammy. But
And I think instead of buying them, because that would still be a lot harder, doing a partnership, that could be something they could still do without purchasing them. Kind of like they did with the Dreamcast. They slapped both their names on the box. So they're, both there. So that's a possibility.
Absolutely. You see, that's what I'm kind of getting from all this because I don't know if anybody else has noticed, but to me it seems kind of obvious I mean, Sega and Microsoft have always had this relationship going way back, as you kind of alluded to, Shock. And in the past couple of years, they've been making some interesting deals. Obviously, last year they had the announcement for quite a few games coming over. Yakuza, all those Yakuza games coming over. Those have made a big impact on Game Pass, to say the least. And yeah, quite a few other titles, if I'm not mistaken. But they've had a pretty solid relationship, Sega and Microsoft. Now, I could see something along the lines of a partnership. I mean, I even remember, was it a year and a half ago, that Sega and Microsoft teased something. Do you guys remember when Sonic, they had like this little Sonic doll going around, was it the Microsoft headquarters?
Oh yeah, they were tweeting out on their page that, hey, we're visiting Microsoft, and that's where a lot of rumors went around of like, oh my god, are they about to buy Sega? Like, why are they
Yeah.
there?
Well,
Why
yeah.
are they, taking pictures? Like, that's where a lot of rumors went rampant.
Like, the thing is, my brain tells me one thing, but my heart tells me another in this situation. It's like, because strategically for Microsoft, I mean, Phil has come out and stated over the past year that he would love to, again, acquire Japanese talent, a Japanese developer. But at the same time, it is hard for like foreign companies to acquire Japanese developers. That being said, it does happen. You look at Tango Gameworks; they were acquired by Bethesda, so it's not out of the question. But I mean, Sega would be a mammoth of an acquisition. So I
That
don't
would
know.
rile up the industry.
Well, again, you have to look at the terminology being used, right?
Yeah.
So,
Or
Did you
if
guys
it's
ever
a
see the tweet?
translation. Which one? The one from Sega when they were visiting, or which tweet are you?
I have it right here on my computer. The one from Sega Bits.
oh, I think I know what you're talking about. Was this from like a couple of months ago?
Let's see. It's obviously not in English, but it's I believe it's saying April 12th, 2020.
Yeah.
And it says June 14th, 9 a.m. Pacific Date Time, 12 p.m. Eastern, live on Mixer, Power Your Dreams, Xbox Game Studios, and Sega.
Well, yeah, that image has floated around for the past couple of months.
Like, I'm not saying it's real, but I guess from what people were saying, that Sega Bits is actually a pretty, I guess, predominant Sega account. So they were just saying, like, the fact that it showed up on that account and was immediately pulled down did get, like, kind of gave the whole thing a little bit of validity, I guess.
Now, I'm just going to put this out there, guys, because whatever announcement that's going to be in this article, it's going to be on June 4th. And PlayStation 5's game reveal is on June 4th as well. I mean, is there the possibility that there's some kind of, like, I don't know, do you guys think the timing of this is just coincidental, or?
I think so, because you saw also, because I forgot to mention earlier when you're talking about what to expect from Sony's, June 4th deal. There was that article that's going to coincide. I think, was it in not Game Informer, I forget which one, but there's that screenshot where it shows that basically all their launch lineup, their launch window, games maybe a few months right after the launch. And I'm pretty sure that has everything that's going to be there day one on launch day. And I feel like there'd be something that would probably be in there, like, because that would be hitting like the same time, because they kind of partnered with them, giving them that information, ahead of time. But maybe they'll have some surprises there. But I think this was, separate, and Microsoft's been working with them with getting the Yakuza over here, as well as Phantasy Star, helping them with their whole cloud technology.
Right.
So I don't think they would be swaying, back to as far as like, oh, we're getting you all this, like, I don't know, exclusive deal or some partnership with them, when they're kind of leaning the other way recently. But
yeah, and I totally agree with you because on that note, because why would Xbox and Sega be working so like closely to get Yakuza over and so on? It would just seem like wasted time, wasted money if that was the case, that Sony was just going to acquire them in a short period of time. So, I mean, the timings of it is very interesting, but no, I would say just more coincidental. But I don't know, guys. Like, there's like some other outlets are like putting out articles now, and they seem pretty confident about something going on here with Microsoft and Sega.
yeah, I don't think it's an acquisition from either, because that's just probably too expensive for Sony. Not that they couldn't do it, but it's, for them, it's way more than a drop in a bucket like it would be for Microsoft. Whereas a partnership, and not just a partnership for exclusives, because I don't think that would rile up the game industry. But if it was like that console, then that could be something huge, because there's so many Sega fans that would just buy it because it does say Sega's name on it. Guarantee it. Especially if it had just some exclusives tied in with it being a Sega console.
If that was just geared towards the Japanese community, I could see a lot of like Sega fans even like around the world.
And it's going to have support. Like, if that would be the frightening thing of buying a Sega console in today's age. Same with the Switch. Initially, you were like, okay, Nintendo's next console after the Wii U, is it going to be supported at all? That's what everybody's kind of fear was, and hesitation was. So that's where, if like Sega was like, hey, we're releasing a console this holiday, people would be like, yeah, but are you going to get support from all the other devs like Xbox and PlayStation do? But they would have the backing tied in with Microsoft, so that would kind of give you like, yeah, I'll buy that version, I'll get Sega exclusives maybe. Plus, I'm going to be supported. I don't have to worry about, I can buy Madden. I can buy, I don't have to treat it as a secondary console like you do with the Switch. Because you might not get everything.
No, absolutely. It's an interesting prospect here for sure. This whole, because we've heard the Xbox Lockhart rumors for a long time. It's been mentioned off and on. And with this whole second console with Sega, it's interesting timing on a lot of things, to be honest. And then when you put like Sega wanted to make an announcement soon, it's very, very interesting, the timings of everything. I can't help but think that yes, Sega and Microsoft have to me, it's more than likely that there is a partnership. And if Microsoft is helping on the console front, then Sega will be helping on the IP front. They probably worked out a few, I would imagine, a couple of deals on a few IP. So, actually, I'm curious, Shock, what IP would you like to see brought over if that was the case that Microsoft would fund?
Probably some of there's. I would want to say Shinobi, even though we have some of those like games like Neo and stuff like out. But there's a lot of ones on the Sega Saturn they could remaster. I know they just recently did Panzer Dragoon, but like Panzer Dragoon Saga, if they made that even totally did the same remaster, but made it even deeper of an RPG, because the combat system in there was great, but no one can play it because it's a $600 game for your already expensive Sega Saturn. So I think that one would be it. But yeah, probably that or Shinobi. Trying to think of any other Sega, like big Sega IP.
I'll say this. I mean, I like quite a few Sega titles going back. I would personally like to see See, I'm not sure who owns the IP for this game, but
Which one?
Vanquish.
I think Sega still owns it.
Because I know they published it, but Platinum Games made the game.
Oh no, yeah, Platinum doesn't own pretty much any of their games that they've made. I'm pretty sure, like, what was the one they just did for Nintendo? Pretty sure Nintendo owns it.
Atlas
I own it.
Chains?
Yeah, or something like that. Yeah, I have Astral Chain. Yeah, I have
Astral,
it,
yeah.
But yeah, I'm pretty sure Platinum had any games that they've made, kind of like with Scalebound. Microsoft owns it, even though that was Hideki Kamiya's, baby, his project he's been wanting to do for, for a while, for a long time. He doesn't own his IP anymore of that project he's, kind of had in his back pocket but never made. So yeah, Sega's, I'm pretty sure they definitely own it because I think they re-released it recently, maybe on PC or something.
Yes, they did. They did a remaster with Bayonetta. So,
but yeah, I think it's always pretty much whoever's like publishing it, unless it's like where Microsoft was like, oh, okay, what do you call it? Not Naughty Dog. The one that did Spider-Man is Insomniac. They let them under those terms. You can keep the IP for Sunset Overdrive. But
yeah, that's true.
Unless it's something like they make a deal like that, but usually it's the publisher that usually owns it most of the time.
Now I remember actually speaking about Vanquish. Now that I think about it, there was a video game journalist that did state that Vanquish 2 was being made exclusively for Microsoft. There was a rumor about it a year ago.
There was. I think it was around the time when Vanquish was doing that remaster.
Now, whether the validity of it or not, who knows? But it's just interesting that these Sega rumors have been popping up, for the past couple of months now. So I don't know. There might be some truth to that. I might have to contact somebody about that. But Centurion, are you a big Sega fan? Do you like any of their IP that maybe you'd like to see be reimagined or brought back at all?
Oh man, like I've talked about in the past, I regretfully was not able to get too deep into the Sega generation, so I feel like I have missed some great titles. I guess for me, the only one that I was ever really interested in when Sega was around was Sonic the Hedgehog. That's why I've been letting you guys just chat it up because I know Sega is a great developer. They have some really, really good gaming history under their belt. They've helped kind of pave the way for console gaming with some of the inventions that they had with console gaming. I heard there was a lot of them too. But definitely, I really don't know where to start when it comes to Sega. Just because I'm so unfamiliar with the majority of their IPs that I just sit back and listen to you guys and just kind of like soak it all in. And that's one thing I love about Shockley is just his knowledge on that side of gaming because, you hear a lot of people, like when you hear people talk about gaming, it's a lot about like Call of Duty, Fortnite, just the stuff that goes on today. And you don't really hear too much about the past. And it's kind of funny. We've had all these talks about backwards compatibility. A lot of the ways to experience these titles is to either go out and buy one of these older consoles and play these games and track down these games and play them, or to talk to people like Shockley and just hear about them.
Absolutely. Well, Shock is the master of all things Sega and so on.
Well, that was my first console. Well, my parents had an NES when I was 4 or 5. But when I was when I was 6, I asked for a Sega Genesis, so that's kind of where my own.
I got given a Sega
Shinobi
Dreamcast.
3 a million times.
I was given a Sega Dreamcast, so that was my only experience with Sega, and I got that Dreamcast way after Sega had stopped making Dreamcasts.
After their heyday.
So yeah. I was finding games pretty cheap for that thing, and that's where I kind of just started dabbling a little bit in Sega was when I had that Dreamcast.
Definitely, I highly recommend Shinobi. You don't have a 3DS, right?
I actually I think I have like the
Because there's an
3DS.
amazing way to play some Sega games. They actually, if you have a 3DS, they actually release some of their best Sega Genesis games as implemented 3D. And when you play Shinobi 3 on that, and it never had 3D back in the day, obviously, and you can see the layers upon layers of the like background, it looks sick.
I have a 2DS.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Either way,
do the 3D.
Shinobi 3 is an amazing game, so that one I highly recommend if you get a chance. It's not too long. It's kind of like arcade based in that you kind of beat it in one sitting.
Damn. Yeah, I don't know. That might be. You know what? I should try out Shinobi. I'll be honest. I haven't played Shinobi, but it's a very. Again, I would just like to see these games brought back, just so I'd be able to try them on the console. But you know what, guys? On that note, I think the show is gonna come to a close. Really great talk. Obviously, talking about all the Sega talk. I'll be curious to see if they do have a partnership. It seems kind of likely at this point, but hey, I guess we'll find out next week. Actually, in a few days. But yeah, really good talk tonight, fellas, talking about how Xbox is improving older games, and honestly, just so much more. The Scorn topic was very, very interesting. You know what? Thank you to everyone that showed up in the chat tonight. We have the Indie Gamer, UK Dazarus, a whole bunch of guys from the UK that are in here. I know Flamish Boy was in as well. Thanks, guys, for staying up late with us. I don't know if you guys had Red Bull or coffee in you. I know Daz is always full of piss and vinegar, gearing to go. No, Daz, honestly, thanks for coming out. Fastback. Who else? NLG. Hey, Mike. Dr. Vodka. Who else? Oh, Jesse Darby. Yeah, thank you. You were pretty active. FC Violence stopped by, and so many more faces. Thank you guys for joining in. Matt Byrnes. I'm just going through the list. Again, guys, if I could scroll faster, that'd be great. But thanks, guys, for showing up. We really appreciate you coming in, tuning in to listen to us, hanging out with us, so to speak. And you guys are just great. And hey, if you like this, show your support for the show, then definitely drop a like, share this episode out to everybody that you know, and subscribe to keep up to date on everything TXR, and hit the notifications just to stay up to date on everything regarding us. Now let's get to some of the outros. And Centurion, you're up first. Where can everybody find you at?
Well, they can always find me right here with you great gentlemen every Sunday night on TXR, but I also do a podcast every Saturday night called the Shop Podcast with PTK Blam and the rest of the great guys over there. You can also find me and all my content on YouTube at Centurion1307, and you can also find me on Twitter and Xbox Live at Centurion1307.
Good stuff, my friend. And again, check out his latest video regarding Scorn. It is a really good one. He just posted it up earlier today. I highly suggest checking it out after the show. All right, Shockley. Good show tonight, brother. Where can everybody find you at?
Yeah, you can find me at Shock Nero on Twitter, Easy Shock on Xbox Live, PSN. But yeah, good show. And yeah, thanks for stopping by.
Definitely. And of course, guys, I'm Invader. You guys can find me on my YouTube channel, Invader Gaming. Look for the robot destroying everything in the background. And I'm pretty active on Twitter at Invader_1986. I see in the chat, hashtag Gamers United Guild, hashtag support and be supported. Obviously, we just recently announced a collective last week with NLG, with the Retro Renegades, and of course the Four Guys with Quarters. Support and be supported. Support the positive podcasts out there. We're a really, really positive gaming group. And next up, our friends over at the Retro Renegades will be having their show on Tuesday. Definitely check them out with the Graphic God, Supersonic Station, and so on. Definitely a very lively bunch. And yeah, guys, stay safe. And we just can't wait to see you next weekend, next Sunday. Take it easy, fellas. Catch you later.